Why do I become foolish when caught up in a crowd? In the first part of Gustave Le Bon's book The Crowd, he discusses the general characteristics of crowds, explaining that crowds display a collective mentality that is significantly different from individual traits. Individual consciousness dissipates, and instead, the emotions and thoughts of the group align in a uniform direction. As a result, individual intellectual abilities weaken, leading to a collective mental state. The second part addresses the emotions and morality of crowds. Crowd emotions are often coercive and extreme, manifesting in simple and exaggerated forms. The morality of the crowd can differ from that of individuals and may sometimes lead to nobler behaviors, depending on the context. In the third part, he explores the thoughts, reasoning, and imagination of crowds. Crowds possess a lack of critical thinking ability, leading to limited information and knowledge, which makes them easily influenced by specific emotions or ideas. Consequently, individuals in a crowd may unconsciously conform or make erroneous judgments. The fourth part describes the religious aspects of crowds, discussing how collective beliefs and convictions are formed and acted upon. Le Bon emphasizes key traits of crowds, such as the dissolution of consciousness, intellectual inferiority, impulsiveness, and volatility. In a crowd, individual consciousness fades, leaving only collective emotions, often revealing feelings that individuals would not typically express. Crowds act on strong impulses, which spread easily within the group, sometimes resulting in extreme behavior driven by momentary emotional surges. Additionally, crowds tend to be susceptible to suggestion and institutional authority, often exhibiting extreme actions. Understanding the impact of crowd psychology on individual thought and behavior is crucial, as Le Bon's theories remain relevant in modern society. Today, the influence of crowd psychology is particularly pronounced in social media environments, significantly impacting personal decision-making. Historical examples, such as the Chinese Communist Revolution or the Khmer Rouge genocide, illustrate the effects of crowd psychology, verifying Le Bon's theories across diverse cultures and epochs. Le Bon notes that crowds tend to perceive only superficial relationships and generalize facts. They lack logical reasoning abilities and struggle to discern truth from falsehood. As a result, crowds often accept imposed judgments rather than engage in discussions based on rational deliberation. When a powerful leader or political ideology affects the imagination of the crowd, they act according to that belief. The psychological mechanisms of the crowd bear similarities to religious convictions, involving blind worship and submission. Le Bon asserts that the convictions of the crowd also take on a religious form, documenting how these beliefs connect to historical events. Although different from traditional religious faiths, the intensity of emotions experienced by a crowd can resemble religious devotion, leading them to obey authority figures and regard opposing views as adversarial. Indirect factors influencing crowd beliefs and views include race, tradition, time, political systems, and education, which contribute to deeply rooted collective convictions. In contrast, direct factors can act as immediate stimuli that persuade the crowd to take specific actions. Indeed, significant historical events often arise from the interplay of these two categories of influence. Le Bon argues that race is the most pivotal element in crowd psychology. Crowds strongly adhere to traditional beliefs, reflecting past experiences and emotions. While crowd beliefs and thoughts may change over time, they are influenced by historical contexts. He also asserts that education does not always exert a positive influence. If past educational content is no longer relevant or practical, it may be disregarded or overlooked. Spencer criticized the superficiality of knowledge in 19th-century European universities, suggesting it was merely a means of determining social status. Le Bon emphasizes the importance of education, advocating for teaching practical knowledge essential for students. He analyzes how crowd mentalities are shaped by education systems and illustrates how negative education can affect crowds. Without proper education, there's a risk that crowds may degenerate into apathetic forces. Direct factors shaping crowd views and beliefs include images, words, phrases, fantasies, experiences, and reasoning. The power of words is closely tied to the images they evoke, and their meanings can vary by context and ethnic background. Concepts like democracy and socialism carry different implications, demonstrating that even the same word can conjure various images depending on the context. Le Bon highlights the impact of fantasy on crowd opinion, arguing that humans often prefer illusions over truths. Fantasies form the foundation of all civilizations, and crowds are frequently led by such illusions. However, only experience can instill truth into the crowd's psyche, breaking down dangerous fantasies. This process necessitates repetition and can be challenging. Le Bon posits that reason has little influence on crowds. They do not make decisions based on logic but act impulsively, with ordinary emotions playing a significant role. A strong-willed leader can captivate and lead a crowd, enabling them to become easily swayed and compliant. The concept of risk emerges as a vital element in crowd psychology. Risk formulates social and political dominance, allowing crowds to be governed through it. This risk is often explained as a mysterious force, becoming even more potent in the absence of logical critique. While fixed beliefs within crowds can be challenged and altered over time, variable opinions can change dramatically due to social and cultural factors. Nonetheless, these fluctuations are underpinned by foundational beliefs. Le Bon argues that any change in beliefs necessitates a corresponding shift in institutions. He asserts that crowd opinions are now more fluid and subject to frequent changes than in the past, attributing this to increasing crowd empowerment and diminishing suppressive factors, which enables a freer expression of varied viewpoints, resulting in ephemeral opinions. Heterogeneous crowds consist of individuals from diverse races and backgrounds. Such crowds are heavily influenced by anonymity and unconscious reactions, with individual intelligence having little impact on crowd evaluation. In contrast, homogeneous crowds are composed of those with similar beliefs and social backgrounds, united by common goals. Le Bon discusses how crowds may commit crimes while unconsciously believing their actions to be justified. This phenomenon is exacerbated by collective psychology, where emotional influences amplify specific actions. He also highlights how the decision-making process in a jury reflects crowd psychology, as jurors, representing the crowd, often succumb to emotional pressures rather than engage in rational evaluation. Exploring the characteristics of voter psychology reveals a lack of critical thinking and emotional sensitivity, as voters often react more to persuasive rhetoric and populism than to practical promises from candidates. This trend shapes the actions of politicians who cater to the desires of the crowd, sometimes at the expense of practical realities. Le Bon identifies two main risks for the functioning of democratic systems: financial waste and the gradual restriction of individual freedoms. These issues stem from the demands and inattentiveness of the voter crowd. For instance, legislators may support legislation that seems to benefit the electorate despite knowing it may burden public finances in the long term, thereby avoiding the accusation of neglecting voter interests. He concludes that in a democracy, the emphasis on continuous legal development often leads to excessive restriction of freedoms, with bureaucracies gaining power. As citizens become accustomed to increased regulation, their capacity for individual action diminishes, leading to a passive acceptance of government control. Le Bon's reflections on crowd psychology pave the way for understanding the complexities of human behavior within groups, stressing the implications for individual agency and liberty in contemporary society. His insights into the nuances of crowds remain relevant, serving as a warning against the pitfalls of collective conformity in socio-political contexts.